Alrighty, what's up beautiful people, and welcome back to my channel. You're watching the daily series of Nwadei MMA, where we talk about everything going on in the MMA community. Today, I give you my unsolicited thoughts and opinions, and more importantly, ask for yours though, because who cares about my opinions? I'm just here giving the information, right? So feel free to comment below as the video goes along. And if you like these sort of things, I mean, we do reaction videos, news, breakdowns, all sorts of different things. You could just look down my channel and see all the creative content we end up coming out with. We also do day in the life vlogs if you are an MMA fighter or an aspiring MMA fighter, or maybe you just are interested in the behind the scenes look at MMA fighters, because I'm an amateur MMA fighter right now and looking to go pro. So if this sounds like something that interests you, go ahead and drop a like on the video, and you're more than welcome to subscribe. And if you do choose to subscribe, hit that bell icon, because we upload throughout all times throughout the day, whether it's the morning, the evening. We try to upload daily, so that might be useful for you to click on. However, with that being said, today we're going to be talking about the insanely stacked UFC 291 card that they are dropping in July. Is this International Fight Week? Is that International Fight Week that they're having that? July 29th? If I'm not mistaken, I believe that is International Fight Week, which is why this thing is so stacked. Poirier versus Geathje 2. We're gonna get into all of this. We're gonna give you our early thoughts and predictions for each of these matchups, what the UFC is setting up here, because we predicted some of these things on this channel. We predicted some of the Ikram Aliskerov. Yeah, we've been talking about that for a little while now. So guys, go ahead, settle in, and let's get started. Alright guys, so starting off with the bottom of the card, something that's hopefully not taking place on the prelims, but probably will be. Kevin Holland versus Michel Chiesa. Kevin Holland, so he wasted his call out after beating Santiago Ponzinibbio. He instead used it to call out Jorge Masvidal, but then afterwards on Ariel's show, he ended up calling out Michel Chiesa, someone who I think they've had a little bit of back and forth, and so that's probably why he wants to slap him up and stuff like that. You know how he talks. But Michel Chiesa, a guy who hasn't really been active. You know, he's kind of been milking this run at welterweight for a little bit, maybe trying to get better at his striking, but he's been at the desk for a lot of these events, so who knows how much he's really been training or how much he's really been getting better or preparing, and if he's still living that full fighter lifestyle. But we can assume that he's been getting better. We can assume maybe his striking's been getting better, because that last performance, or two performances against Vicente Luque and Sean Brady, were not his best. Now, we know that Michel Chiesa is a grappler. However, ever since he's moved to lightweight, yeah, he's been a grappler, but you know, grappling has less of an effect against bigger guys, right? So we've seen him have to rely on his striking a little bit more, and it hasn't really worked out too well. He had a good win over Neil Magny, Diego Sanchez, and even Rafael dos Anjos. Dos Anjos being the best of those wins in my opinion, and who knows, maybe he can get the win now. But I think that Kevin Holland is gonna slap him up. I think that Kevin Holland is the better striker. I think that their jiu-jitsu is pretty much even. If not, Kevin Holland's maybe more dangerous, just including his elbows off of his back and his striking, his hammer fists when he's in a bottom position. I mean, he finds weird ways in his guard to generate tremendous amounts of power. So I think that Kevin Holland is more dangerous all around. I think this is a good fight for him. I hope he doesn't do any of these things like I'm gonna grapple with a grappler or strike with a striker. I hope he just fights MMA and whoops this guy. So I'm a big Kevin Holland fan. I'm a big believer that he'll become champion one day. If you've been following me, you've probably seen this video right here. However, if you haven't, I suggest you go and watch that. Moving forward, we have Derrick Lewis, another Houston native, versus Marcos de Lima. This is a very interesting fight in the heavyweight division. In this matchup, we'll be able to see if Derrick Lewis can land his nuke of hands or if he can't. Both of these guys are strikers for the most part, both similar in age. Derrick Lewis has the longer reach. You know, I think Derrick clips him. I can see, because Derrick's been getting better, even though it might not have seemed like it. I just believe that the skill gap between him and his last opponents was pretty extensive, but he has been working harder. He's been getting better, and I think that it might show in this matchup. So I got Derrick Lewis going for that one. Next up, we got Stephen Thompson versus Michel Pereira. This is going to be an extremely fun fight, guys. Two strikers Obviously, Stephen Thompson, more of a traditional striker. Karate background, 57-0 as a kickboxer. Yeah, we know about Stephen Thompson. However, Michel Pereira is a very creative, tricky, and more MMA-oriented striker. So I don't know how many kickboxing fights or individual striking matches Michel Pereira has had, but I do know that the last very creative, very tricky striker that Stephen Thompson faced was Anthony Pettis. Well, actually, Kevin Holland is pretty tricky and pretty creative, so that is something to think about. But Michel Pereira is also very explosive and does different shit like flying off the cage, showtime kicks, backflip kicks if he knocks you down, and you know, we all know who Michel Pereira is. So I'm taking Stephen Thompson in that one just because Stephen Thompson really, the only thing that has looked like it slowed down a little bit is maybe his footwork, but other than that, I think that he's honestly better than he's ever been. With his boxing, he's incorporated a lot more hands. His kickboxing is still there. His traditional stuff is still there. Spin, side kicks, all that. I think that someone who would be able to beat Stephen Thompson, it has to be a guy who is going to be coming forward with lots of different combinations, kicking the legs, and constantly trying to slow Stephen Thompson down, and then eventually cut him off when his footwork starts to slow down. But I don't think Michel Pereira is that kind of guy. I think he's more of a pop shotter, and therefore I think Stephen Thompson's going to win this one. Now, for another banger on this card in the middleweight division, Paulo Costa versus Ikram Aliskerov. Didn't I tell you guys that Ikram Aliskerov was being set up to fight Khamzat Chimaev? Guys, it was the most bold move and most obvious move when they paired him up with Phil Haas. From that moment, I was just like, okay, that's what they're trying to do. Phil Haas should have taken this fight. They probably knew he should have taken this fight, so it's questionable matchmaking in that regard. But he's going to be fighting Paulo Costa. Costa seems like he's getting thrown into this one, but since he's getting $1 million a fight, it's like, does he really care who he's fighting at this point? He was supposed to fight Hamza, he was supposed to fight Jan Blachowicz, and now he's supposed to fight Ikram Aliskerov. We'll see if he gets out of that contract or not. But Ikram Aliskerov, combat sambo world champion, a guy who used to fight at welterweight but has moved up to middleweight. He's pretty much the same stature and frame as a Khamzat Chimaev. He has similar wrestling to a Khamzat Chimaev, however he can strike as well. This is going to be a very, very interesting fight. However, grapplers don't really have that much success against Paulo Costa. If you looked at the history of his fights dating after The Ultimate Fighter, I mean, he's a big guy, so he's naturally going to be harder to wrestle and keep down on his back. He's also a guy who is on all that secret juice, and so he doesn't really get tired and gas out. He'll get tired and he'll show some signs of fatigue, but it never really stops him from displaying more output or anything like that. The only time I've seen him shy away from displaying more output was going against Israel Adesanya, because he beat him at the chess match, which is different than someone gassing out and not throwing after that. Even against Yoel Romero, he was still throwing, even though that was an extremely exhausting and brutal fight. So we can assume that Paulo Costa will be there for all 3 rounds of this one, and I mean, it's do or die, really. It's do or die for they're really just rushing Ikram Aliskerov. I'm interested. I don't know who's gonna win. If I had to pick one, I'd probably say Paulo right now, just because Ikram seems a little bit flat-footed on his feet. When I have seen him strike, he got Haas with a nice cross and you know, was able to put him away. I think Haas's chin has been very weakened, and that his movement was also weakened by that knee injury he had against Dolidze. But even before that fight, before the UFC or any of that, I think he's always been kind of flat-footed, and that's why he got knocked out by Khamzat Chimaev with that uppercut. He telegraphs his things a little bit too much, but you know, he could just go out there and maul Paulo Costa, who knows. But for this one, I'm picking Paulo Costa. Tony Ferguson versus Bobby Green is up after that, and you know, I'm gonna be choosing Bobby Green in this one. It's back down at lightweight. They're of the same era, really, but Tony Ferguson is 3 years older. He's 39, almost turning 40. His last performance against Nate Diaz didn't look the best. Granted, he didn't have the time to prepare. He was supposed to be fighting Li Jingliang, so who knows what his game plan was going to be, probably to take him down. But going against another striker in Bobby Green, you know, he might actually look to wrestle this one. He was wrestling in the last one, even with Nate. Got caught in a guillotine, of course. mistake, but we'll see if he decides to wrestle in that one. That'll make it a little bit more interesting. But I think if this one just takes place on the feet, I think Bobby Green, I can see him getting it done. Of course, Tony will still have the gas tank and the cardio and whatnot, and he'll be fighting that lightweight. This is his prime division, but I think that Bobby Green will be able to keep him at bay for the most part. I've never really seen Bobby Green get tired. He spars similar to like Tony Ferguson, except he doesn't even take breaks, no rounds and stuff like that. He just spars straight for like 30 minutes. And if you watch him, that's kind of how he keeps that pace. He starts off a little bit slower, but then he amps it up at the end of each round. And if you remember against Fiziev, he held his own and he started to ramp it up at the end. And while he still did lose that fight, put on a really good showing and show that Fiziev actually has a little bit more cardio issues than Bobby Green. So I'm taking Bobby Green in that one. Next fight we have, God, this card is absolutely ridiculous, because the next fight we have is Jan Blachowicz versus Alex Pereira. Guys, this sets up a lot. If you think about it, this sets up a lot. Okay, first thing I have to say is Alex Pereira is coming back very soon. You know, after he got frozen like Elsa, I don't think that this is the right time to come back. 4 months is not very long, but people in my circle, my inner circle, kind of predicted it. And they kind of predicted that, one, he would come back, and they kind of predicted that he would come back against Jan. Why? Because Jan just had that draw with Magomed Ankalaev. So if he beats Jan Blachowicz, he's beating a former champion, he's beating someone who's beaten Izzy, he's beating a big name, and he's beating someone who was really a #1 contender for the title fight. And since Jamal Hill's going to be fighting Yuri, that sets him up to go and get that belt. Alex Pereira's what, 35, 36? He doesn't have too long in this game. He's trying to make his money and get out. He's not interested in fights that aren't gonna put him towards the title, right? So the UFC is gonna try and fast track him in this light heavyweight division, because the UFC trying to make as much money out of him as they can before he retires, right? So those were 4 beautiful reasons for why he's fighting Jan Blachowicz. And if Jan gets a win over him, he beats someone who beat Izzy. It'll set him up if he does want to move down to middleweight. I know he was talking about moving down to middleweight, or it'll even set him up for a light heavyweight title shot, just because his name will be so much bigger, and you know, it's a good win for him. So I think either way it goes, someone's getting a title shot in some weight class, and that's gonna be an extremely fun fight. Who do I have winning this one? God damn, that's yeah, this is a difficult one, because Jan's Muay Thai style, the way he was able to check all of Izzy's kicks and force him to kind of come forward with combinations, but then shut down his jab really with his blitzes and his timing of his strikes, and the way he was able to take Izzy down in the later rounds. I think he's going to implement a little bit more of a similar game plan, but I think that Alex Pereira is a lot faster, and that we could be seeing Jan Blachowicz either knee to a gut, either cross to the chin. Yeah, I think Alex Pereira is going to get this one. But that's a great fight. Great fight. And now moving on to the main event, guys. Dustin Poirier versus Justin Geathje. Now, this is different from the first time for many reasons. We got to remember, first off, the first fight was very close. Geathje was investing in the legs. Dustin was investing in the head. Went to the body a little bit, but was mainly investing in the head. And we got to also remember that Justin Geathje, that was back in his Marauder phase. That was back with impatient Justin Geathje. That was back with the I'm gonna break you Justin Geathje. That was back with the just only coming forward highlight reel after highlight reel Justin Geathje. And he still is highlight reel after highlight reel, but he's a lot more patient. And patient Geathje is a more dangerous Geathje. It was either after this fight or the Alvarez fight, whichever one was later. It was after the Dustin fight, where he fought James Vick after that, and from there he was just being a lot more patient. He fought Cerrone, he fought Edson Barbosa, he beat up Tony for the belt, and that was patient Geathje. That was the Geathje who would stand behind his jab, the Geathje who wasn't just constantly walking forward. He was mixing up the ranges, and he showed the intelligence side to him, which, one, gave his career a lot more longevity, especially in the UFC, and two, showed that, you know, he is one of the best in the world. He's not just some maniac who's going to walk forward. And with doing that, this brings a whole new set of problems to Dustin Poirier. Dustin's a guy who will get in a scrap, and, you know, he's going to shine when the lights are brightest, right? That's why they call him the Diamond. But, man, this is a tough fight. It's a tough fight. It's just like, it's almost like the first time we were saying that it was like, who's really gonna win this fight, you know? And now we get to see them face off. How do I think this one goes? Well, honestly, you can kind of see the same fight kind of going, because once Poirier starts touching Geathje is going to start coming forward. He might stay behind his jab for the first 2 rounds or whatever. But another thing you have to remember is that this is for the BMF title, and these are 2 bad motherfuckers fighting, right? But no sugarcoating. Sorry, kids. But yeah, these are 2 BMFs fighting for the strap, the vacant strap. Jorge retired, right? So it rebirthed out of thin air, out of nowhere. So given early thoughts, like I said, Geathje's probably going to be attacking that lead leg. He's going to force Poirier to switch or keep switching. But something he could have done a little better in that match was actually implement his jab, just to maybe bait Poirier to come forward, bait that cross out of him, and to counter off that backhand. Poirier, he pretty much did everything he needed to for a guy pressuring him that much. Poirier will probably go to the body a lot earlier. We could see some push kicks come in, body roundhouse kicks. I wouldn't be surprised if Geathje mixed in a little bit of wrestling just to throw off the ranges for Poirier. But ultimately, you know, I'm going with the Diamond. I think that the Diamond is still running hot. I think he's still gunning for that title, and I think that he's actually a better matchup for Islam Makhachev than Justin Geathje is, just because of his grappling. Takedown defense, Geathje probably has better of, and it'll be harder for Islam to take down Geathje. But once he does, or if he does get Geathje to the ground, he'll be able to submit him. And I think that none of us really have any quarrels with that. Like, he'll be able to submit him. Poirier, on the other hand, it's a little different. He's better at jiu-jitsu. He has a black belt in jiu-jitsu, even though some people doubt that. And so ultimately, I think that Poirier is going to be able to win this fight. I think he's the more well-rounded martial artist, and we should see that one shine through. However, with that being said, thank you guys for stopping by the video today, the daily series of Nwadei MMA, where I give you my thoughts, but more importantly, ask for yours. So comment away, guys. Drop your thoughts down below, hit that like button, smash it, share it with your friends, and y'all stay safe and stay blessed. As always, I'm out. Peace.